G'day Guardians, Roguey here. As I'm sure you're all aware by now, I love Destiny. I love the gameplay, the design, the variety, but most of all, I love the fantasy. The fantasy to make your Guardian unique and creative. Whenever I'm theory crafting a build, I always start with what is the fantasy? What is this build trying to achieve? From then, it's looking at all the pieces and how best we can put them together to live that fantasy. I loved the idea of combining Assassin's Cowl with Revenant Hunter for a while now, making use of its accurate and powerful melee attack to proc the Vanishing Execution, but always felt like it was missing something. Though now, with the release of Overcharge Wellmaker and Well of Ions, we have some great synergies to really make this build shine. I give you the Stasis Ninja. This build will let you feel like a ninja, drifting in and out of the shadows to assassinate your enemies, taking down targets from afar with your frozen throwing stars and vanishing from their sights. So let's run through how we can make this fantasy possible. How do we live as the Stasis Ninja? First off, we've got the exotic Hunter Helmet Assassin's Cowl, obtainable by finishing the Shadowkeep campaign. Now, Assassin's Cowl gives you invisibility and restores a portion of your health and shields upon an empowered melee kill. Using your finisher just amplifies these effects. Now, I really wish this exotic had an ornament, as personally, I hate its aesthetic and find it difficult to work with when doing the true endgame content of Destiny 2, fashion. But I digress. Having 2 charges of empowered melee really opens up a lot of options when using Assassin's Cowl. Taking a look at our Stasis loadout, we're running Grim Harvest and Touch of Winter as our Stasis Aspects. I remember being pretty disappointed when Grim Harvest came out, as it was around the same time as Bleak Watcher, which just looked like so much fun. This little Stasis buddy turret shooting off Stasis bolts, freezing everything inside. I was like, man, why did Hunters get something that cool? But, I guess we got enough cool things already. Although, with the amount of Stasis shards Revenant Hunter can generate, I've grown to love Grim Harvest. Touch of Winter, I just run it for the extra fragment slot. Not too fussed about the grenades in this build, so it's pretty irrelevant. As for fragments, with these 2 aspects, we do have the benefit of being able to run 4 of them. For those fragments, I've got Whisper of Conduction for an easy Stasis shard pickup, Fractures to boost our melee regeneration, Rhyme to bolster our survivability, and Refractions to feed our dodge roll energy. Now let's take a look at the armor mods that I'm using to make this build shine. In the helmet, we're running double hands-on. I'm loving how much having hands-on at 1 cost is opening up build path. Pop a couple of these on any melee focus build and you'll be laughing. Overload Wellmaker, spawning us 2 Arc Wells each time we use our finisher. Since we are also running Well of Ions, this will be our only way to self-generate the necessary Arc Wells. Using your finisher at every opportunity you can isn't just something that comes naturally to me, so I had to rewire my brain to ensure I was getting the maximum value from this exotic. After a while though, you begin to see those little green dots as your saviors. In arms, we are once again abusing the outrageous synergy of Withering Strike and Thermoclastic Blooming, creating up to 4 orbs of power for each empowered melee we throw out. And Well of Ions, since we'll be picking up those Arc Wells from each finisher, this is a great way to further maximize the effectiveness of our melee and ensure our melee gets a kill. Let's just take a pause here for a minute and talk about the amount of value that each empowered melee is generating here. When we get a shuriken kill, it's healing us, giving us a shield, providing us a stealth effect, spawning up to 4 orbs of power, generating a super energy due to the double hands-on, and finally, it's creating a stasis shard on top of every kill that it is getting. It's important to remember that these stasis shards that are dropping, they're going to be doubling as elemental wells due to the elemental shards mod. In our chest piece, nothing too exciting. We are running Well of Striking, which is great because it's going to be further increasing the value of each of those Arc Wells we're picking up, effectively getting our melee off cooldown as quickly as possible. Down in our legs, we've got double Orbs of Restoration. Now this mod is one of the new Stasis mods. It gives us ability energy back for our least charged ability. This synergizes really well with Thermoclastic Blooming, since every melee we're throwing is creating us about 4 orbs of power, and we can use them to quickly recharge our melee or dodge roll. We've also got on Well of Restoration, which has basically the same effect, but is procced by our Stasis Elemental Well, against something we are generating off each melee kill. In the past, I've typically run heavy-handed to ensure my melee uptime, but it can be very limiting due to its heavy mod cost and reliance on being charged with light, so I find this setup a great little alternative. And finally, for our cloak, we'll be using my current favourite mod, Utility Kickstarter, Thermoclastic Strike, and Elemental Shards. As every good hunter knows, dodge roll is the most important part of any kit, so having it off cooldown is always good. Thermoclastic Strike opens up our weapon options, not limiting us to needing a bow to deal with those pesky overloads. Elemental Shards turning all our Stasis Shards into Stasis Wells to proc Well of Restoration. Now that we've seen the modification makeup, let's talk about how this build plays together. You'll want to be starting the fights one of two ways, either quickly engaging the encounter by tossing out some shurikens for the stealth, or first weakening up the first few enemies you see, then going in for the finisher. After playing with this build for a while, starting the fight with the finisher, although a little bit more risky, feels great. Getting the increased melee damage ensures your next shuriken will kill its red bar target even on those harder difficulties. My most recent exploit with this build was taking it into the new legendary Shattered Realm content. Playing through this content solo gave me such an appreciation for Assassin's Cowl. The amount of times I'd find myself in the thick of it, surrounded by Scorn, on the brink of death, and then, like a guardian angel, extending its hand forward, that little green circle. "Finish him!" I hear the Mortal Kombat announcer say in the back of my mind, and just like that, I'm fully shielded, surrounded by ice magic, now with ample time to reposition. Invisibility is such an incredible mechanic, and right now hunters have some very strong stealth abilities available to them. The recently buffed Graviton Forfeit comes to mind, along with of course Omnioculus, but both of these are limited to Void, and this season's seasonal artifact seems to have forgotten that Void exists, clearly favouring Stasis and Solar. So, by running Assassin's Cowl, we open ourselves up to all the different possibilities of Season 15. One of the biggest advantages that the stealth gain from Assassin's Cowl has over its void-based counterparts is the duration. The duration of the invisibility scales off the difficulty of the enemy that you're finishing. 7 seconds for your basic run-of-the-mill thrall, all the way up to 15 seconds when taking down a champion with a finisher. Of course, the biggest drawback is its inability to stealth allies. So while this build may be not the greatest for taking on Grandmasters or a master level Vault of Glass, it does excel at this solo content like the Lost Sectors or the Shattered Realm. I've been enjoying this build the more and more I use it, as Destiny shouldn't always be about min-maxing to perform the highest DPS possible. Sometimes it's more fun to run around living the fantasy of the ultimate Stasis Ninja. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Maybe it's inspired you to dust off Assassin's Cowl and give this build a run for your own. As always, Guardians, I'll see you in the next one.